Something unusual is stacking up in the sky tonight for Aquarius, and almost nobody is going to explain it to you properly. 3 different lenses on this same Sunday, a modern discovery planet, a fast moon, and a slower giant, are all pointing at the same theme in your chart. By the end of this, you will understand why a day that starts rough is almost engineered to end well, and why the next 2.5 weeks matter more than today alone. The bigger picture. Let us start with the planet most horoscopes skip entirely. Chiron, discovered in 1977 during a year of test tube babies, punk rock, and the first Apple computers, is currently sitting in Taurus, inside the part of your chart tied to extended family. In evolutionary astrology, Chiron is not a wound that stays open forever. It is the place where you have been told something is impossible, and where you are now being quietly dared to try anyway. That is not a small detail. It is the undercurrent running beneath everything else happening today. Meanwhile, in Western tropical astrology, the moon is traveling through Gemini, lighting up your 5th house of creativity and play. As it moves, it forms a sextile, a supportive, easy-flowing angle to the sun in Leo, currently sitting in your 7th house of partnership. That is the mechanical heart of today. A playful, expressive part of you is being invited to connect with someone else. And the geometry between these 2 points is cooperative, not tense. Now here is where the picture gets richer. Switch over to the Vedic, sidereal tradition, and the emphasis shifts to the moon's placement in Taurus rather than Gemini. Vedic astrologers reading today's chart through astrology's lens note that your morning may feel frustrating, testing your patience early, but that the day is built to resolve well. There is something worth knowing here, even outside Vedic practice. In the older Hellenistic system, the moon is considered exalted in Taurus, meaning it operates at its most dignified and stable. 3 separate traditions are essentially agreeing, from 3 different angles, that whatever friction shows up early has very little staying power. That is the first thing worth sitting with. A daring, unconventional undercurrent from Chiron, a cooperative, expressive moon-sun conversation from the tropical chart, and a steadying, well-dignified moon from the older traditions. Different vocabularies, same message. Today rewards effort over ease, and it pays off before the day is through. Love. You may have noticed your heart feels a little more exposed than usual today, almost proudly so. That Gemini moon winking at your Leo sun is not subtle. It creates an infectious, rainbows kind of optimism, the sort that makes you want to gather your inner circle around a big, slightly eccentric idea and trust that they will say yes. But here is what almost every generic horoscope misses about this transit. It is not a one-day event. Tomorrow, communicative Mercury moves into Leo and into that same 7th house of committed connection, and it stays there until August 25th. That is nearly 3 weeks where the Aquarius pendulum, usually happiest in solo orbit, swings toward partnership. If you have been carrying a lopsided share of responsibility in a relationship, this window often corresponds with someone stepping up to meet you halfway. Take a breath here, because this next part is personal. A playful idea, a flirtation, a half-formed joke you have been sitting on. The current alignment suggests sharing it rather than polishing it first. Chemistry, under this sky, tends to respond better to a little organization than to more mystery. One sincere sentence, a specific time, a named place, that tends to land further than another clever deflection. If you are currently single, the Vedic reading adds a complimentary note. Someone unexpected may enter the picture, while those already partnered might feel a touch more distant than usual, a small imbalance worth simply noticing rather than worrying over. Career. That same expressive, collaborative current does not stop at romance. It flows straight into how you work today. The 5th house energy behind that Gemini moon is not only about flirtation, it is about creative self-expression in general, and the sextile to your Leo sun means that expression finds an audience. Here is the part worth paying attention to if you are the type who sits on ideas until they are perfect. This is not a day for polishing something in isolation. Pitch the draft, voice the pitch. Bring the half-formed concept into a conversation rather than a private document, because the current alignment favors collaboration, adding momentum, not diluting it. The moon later forms a similar sextile to Saturn, which tends to translate a playful idea into something you can actually structure and follow through on. Ideas that arrive today have an unusual chance of becoming plans, provided you speak them out loud before overthinking sets in. Money. Financial energy today asks for a specific kind of maturity, optimism paired with restraint. There may be a small stroke of financial luck available to you, but the wiser move under this sky leans toward reducing unnecessary spending and chipping away at existing debt rather than expanding your exposure. Here is the good news they did not mention. This is not a scarcity signal. It is closer to a checkpoint. The same daring Chiron energy that has you willing to attempt the impossible in one area of life pairs well with discipline in another. Spend where it compounds. Hold back where it does not. That balance tends to serve Aquarius better this week than either extreme. Health. Now for the detail most people scrolling through their horoscope will completely miss. Aquarius, the real insight today is not in what you do, it is in what you release. Rather than clinging to one particular outcome, the psychological approach to astrology suggests staying receptive to whatever shifts show up unexpectedly. That single adjustment, loosening your grip on a fixed result, is quietly the most powerful move available to you today. Most people will chase the plan. You do not have to. Physically, this is a day to prioritize real sleep, particularly if headaches or migraines tend to visit you under stress. The early frustration mentioned earlier in the day, the one the Vedic tradition flags around your patience being tested, tends to show up first in the body before it shows up in your mood. Cheerfulness under pressure is not just a nice quality today, it functions almost like protection, visibly impressing the people around you while making obstacles feel smaller than they actually are. If you want a small, safe boost to your aura today, wearing darker shades of gray is a traditionally supportive color choice in Vedic practice, nothing more elaborate than that. Some Vedic practitioners may also recommend deeper remedies tied to specific planetary placements, such as targeted gemstones or mantras, but those are only ever appropriate after a full birth chart analysis by a qualified astrologer. That kind of prescription is not universal advice, and nothing here should be read as a substitute for it. Home and family. Here is where Chiron quietly returns to the story. That placement in Taurus, sitting in your sector of extended family, has been active for a while now, and it is the reason certain conversations with relatives outside your immediate household may feel more emotionally loaded than they used to. Evolutionary astrology frames Chiron not as an old wound reopening, but as permission to attempt a kind of honesty in family dynamics that once felt off limits. Picture it like an old, slightly dusty photograph that has been sitting in a drawer. Nobody's thrown it away, but nobody's looked at it directly either. Today's alignment does not force you to pull it out, but it does make the drawer easier to open than usual. If there is a family conversation you have been avoiding, this stretch of days tends to lower the emotional cost of finally having it. Closer to home, that same fifth house moon keeps things lighter. Friends seem unusually receptive to whatever eccentric plan you propose today, and mobilizing your inner circle around something shared, even something small, tends to lift your own mood faster than solitude would. Travel in spirit. There is a synthesis worth naming directly here because two very different frameworks are quietly describing the same opportunity. The Western picture shows Mercury about to spend nearly 3 weeks in your house of partnership, favoring outward movement toward others. The more intuitive, receptivity-based reading suggests that your efforts of recent weeks are beginning to pay off, and even floats a specific destination worth considering: Italy as fertile ground for future travel plans. One tradition explains the mechanism. The other names the direction. Together they suggest that any travel plans forming right now, even loosely, deserve a little more attention than a passing daydream. Spiritually, the through line of the entire day comes back to that psychological principle mentioned earlier. Loosen your grip on the outcome, not indifference, just openness. Think of it less like abandoning a destination and more like adjusting your sails without giving up the voyage. Lucky signs. If you are looking for the day's quick markers, dark gray remains your supportive color choice, tied to the Vedic reading of today's moon. The window between 3 and 4 in the afternoon carries a slightly luckier charge than the rest of the day. Compatibility currently favors fire, particularly Leo, given the sun's placement forming that easy angle to your Gemini moon transit. And Taurus, home to both Chiron and today's well-dignified moon, plays a quieter but steady supporting role in the background of the day. Today's guidance. So here is the through line, gathered from every angle we have walked through today. Something daring in your chart, decades in the making, is asking you to attempt what once felt impossible in family territory. Something playful is asking you to speak up in partnership before overthinking cools it down. And something older and steadier, visible across both Vedic and traditional astrology, is quietly promising that today's rough start softens by evening. The pattern connecting all of it is remarkably simple. Say the sincere sentence. Share the half-finished idea. Hold your plans loosely enough to let something better in. That is the real shift today is offering you, not a guarantee, just an opening. And Aquarius, openings like this tend to reward the people who actually walk through them.